Thank you all for coming out on this snowy morning. Good to see you, Robin. Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see everyone. So I'm grateful to sit down today. So the title of this message is The Power of Purpose. And it's a subject I've been interested in a long time, back in my years in corporate America as well. So Lewis Carroll published Alice's Adventures in Wonderland in 1865, and it's never gone out of print. People around the world are still fascinated by the magical and mysterious themes and characters. Probably more than one movie's been made about it. And one of my favorite characters is a Cheshire Cat. At one point, Alice is wandering through Wonderland, and she asks the cat, "Which way do I go from here?" And the cat says, "That depends a good deal on where you want to get to." And Alice says, "I don't much care." The cat says, "Then it doesn't matter which way you go." "So long as I get somewhere," Alice replied as an explanation. "Oh, you're sure to do that," the cat said, "if only you walk long enough." So clearly Alice was an individual without purpose or direction, and her journey would end as a surprise and most likely a disappointment. And our own lives can be the same. If we haven't connected with our own purpose, our reason for being, and our very reason for getting up in the morning, we might wander through life without direction or a sense of purpose. So I was fascinated. I read a book in college called Man's Search for Meaning, written by someone named Viktor Frankl, who was an Austrian I think he was a psychologist. I don't think he was a psychiatrist. He went on, he wrote the book after he was released from a Nazi concentration camp during World War II. It's an amazing, life-changing book. I've read it multiple times. And when he got out of the concentration camp, he founded an institute, and he started studying people in his practice. And one of the things he learned was that only 20 to 30% of people love their work. Most people just spend their lives going through the motions and getting a paycheck. And he survived. And at one point, he asked older people in his life that he knew, what would they do differently if they had their lives to live over again, knowing what they know now. And they said, almost to a person, be more reflective and pause and try to look at the big picture. Take more risks and be more authentic in their true nature. Be more courageous. And most importantly, perhaps, live according to what mattered most to them personally, and not from external values that somebody else created and that they might not even really agree with. So that's a lot to think about for all of us. And someone else who I admire, his name's Richard Leider. I actually borrowed the term power of purpose from his work. And he was enormously impressed with Viktor Frankl. And he was, I can't remember whether Richard Leider was South African, but he used to take people like on walkabouts in South Africa to get them out of their normal life and to experience the wilderness and so on. And he tells a great story in one of his books that he had a group and that Richard was wearing a backpack. And he'd taken so much time preparing for this walk, this hike in the outback. And he had GPS devices, he had all sorts of first aid equipment. He had packed it full of everything he thought he was going to need for the journey. And the group had a Maasai guide who had been educated as a child in a Christian monastery, so was very good in English, but had never surrendered his Maasai nature and belief system. And so they're kind of in a couple of days into the walk, and Richard Leider is aware that his Maasai guide keeps looking at his backpack and kind of with great interest. And so at some point the guide says, "I'm curious, Richard, what's in that?" And so Richard is very excited to show him how much care he took and how well he prepared for this journey. So when they have a pause, he opens the backpack and takes everything out and shows him all the different things that he has. And the guide looks at it politely. And after he's seen all the items, he says, "Does any of this make you happy?" And so when Richard got back, he wrote a book called Repacking Your Bag about what is it that we really need on our journey and how we get caught up into preparing in ways and many of us, me included, I'm kind of on a mission to simplify and let go of things that I've held on to for many years, and I hear many people are doing the same. And it wasn't Richard Leider, but I remember someone years ago, back when I was in corporate America, said, like, if you got the message that the fire was coming and you had like 10 minutes, I have a good friend in Boulder who was one of the 1,000 structures that burned to the ground 2 years ago. She had 10 minutes when the fire was coming. So all she took was her computer and her hard drive. She's a graphic artist. And the question is, if you thought you only had that much time, or you thought you had to go on a journey where you were walking, what would you take? I mean, what is really critical? And so that speaks to, in many ways, what the purpose is. So it's I also love a quote by Dolly Parton. She said, "Find out who you are and do it on purpose," which is also a great, absolutely great quote. So I wanted to read these 10 questions that Richard Leider developed in his consulting work. And you can think about these. I mean, these are online. I copied them there, so these are not mine. And it's richardleider.com if anybody wants to look them up. So he, in his consulting practice, developed 10 questions for unlocking your own power of purpose. And question number 1 is, why are you? Not who are you, but why are you? What is it that gets you up in the morning, or what is it that causes you to feel on fire, excited about doing something? So the second question is, why do you get up in the morning? Just because you have to? Are you going to a job that you really don't like? Or could be any one of a number of things that causes us. In my case, it's because I have to pee. Just kidding. Question number 3, what keeps you awake at night? Boy, that's a question that we could ponder for a long time and think about what it is if we wake up that's going through our minds. And it could be a worry, it could be a regret, it could be a lot of things. Question number 4, when are you the most alive? What is it that really excites you and makes you want to do it over and over? And number 5, what does being successful mean to you? My grandmother used to have an expression, "There are no pockets in a shroud." I thought that was very poetic. In other words, whatever we do in life, nothing physical do we take along with us. What we take along with us is probably the love we've shared and received and the friends that we've had and the family. It's not the stuff. And yet we spend so much time accumulating stuff. Question number 6, how might you apply your gifts? That's gifts, and he's got it in italics as the most important word in the sentence. How might you apply your gifts to a pursuit that is of deep interest to you and helps others? That's another one you could spend days pondering, right? Really learning what our gifts are is also powerful work. Number 7, I love this one. What can you do today to make a difference in one person's life? Just an act of kindness, an email, a message, a card, I'm thinking about you, whatever it might be. Just some small thing, smiling at a stranger in the grocery store. You know, there are many stories of people who were contemplating suicide, and someone said a kind word or looked at them and smiled, and it's transforming. So sometimes, probably most times, it's the small things and not the big things that really make a difference. Number 8, and he says, what is your sentence? And he has sentence italicized. Parentheses, meaning if you summarized your purpose in one 140-character sentence in what used to be like Twitter, what's it called now?
X.
X.
Twitter X.
What would it be? What 140 character? That's only about 15 words. That's not a lot. What would that be that would describe your purpose, your own sense of purpose? And people who work in this field say it doesn't have to be I'm saving the world, I'm developing a COVID vaccine, I'm writing a great piece of music. I mean, whatever it would be. I'm writing the great American novel. But what, at the end of your life, if you were looking back, made the difference? And what is it that you believe for Bruce? It's his music, perhaps. I mean, that may be. I'm assuming that may not be the answer. It may be something else that you've never, for example, pursued. Somebody else, it may be they want to write a book or poetry or volunteer at an early childhood learning center or plant a garden that they can tend. As I say, it often is not the big things to bring more kindness. Number 9 question. If you say yes, I love this one too. This is like my big lesson. If you say less to living purposely, what do you say no to? So my problem in life is never learning to say no. It's always saying yes and then collapsing under the weight of it. So learning that focus of where it is we can feel the most fulfilled, as well as making a difference in some way. And I love this one. Question number 10. If you met an older version of yourself, what sage advice would they give you? And that takes us back to the lessons that Viktor Frankl, or the answers that Viktor Frankl received from the elders. And I have a friend who, in her work career, was a hospice doctor. She wrote a book about it. And she said of all the people that she worked with in hospice, no one ever lies in their bed as they're dying wishing they'd spent more time at the office. What people look back on is, how could I have healed that family relationship? Why did I not take that trip to Paris that I longed to do my whole life? The regrets are never about working harder or massing more things. It's always about, and I'm trying to, have any of you seen the movie The Bucket List with Morgan Freeman? And, that's a great, and Jack Nicholson. Yeah, it's a great movie about what matters and how we often spend our entire life energy working on things or using our energy in things that at the end of the day aren't as significant as kindness to a stranger. There's a wonderful story in one of Michael Newton's books. He was a psychologist who worked with hypnotic regression and discovered a process of taking people between lifetimes and finding out what they wish they would have done or what lessons they were here to learn. And there's one lovely story about a man who was seeing Newton, he felt like his life was a failure, and he really thought he didn't know. So he went to see him, and in trance, Newton takes him back actually to his last lifetime, which was he died, I think, in the 1930s or 40s, and was alive in this lifetime. And in the experience between lives, he's thinking that his whole life was a failure, and this council of elders said to him, "What about the woman on the park bench?" He had no idea what they were talking about. And the story goes that at the time of the Wall Street crash in 2930, he was walking along the street and he saw a woman sobbing on a park bench. And in a spontaneous act of compassion, he sat down beside her and said, "At the end of the day, it's only money. You still have your health, you still have your family, and you're going to be all right." And what he didn't know in that lifetime is that act of kindness changed her life. And they told him that essentially, in spiritual terms, that was the most significant thing he'd done in his whole life. Now, maybe that's an exaggeration, but that was the guidance he received. That in all the ways he was measuring his success, number of clients, how much money did I make in the stock market, at the end of our life, that's not what matters. And it's often kindness to strangers, helping others, helping someone who needs a hand. So I just want to close, and then we can talk about it. So we can just hear people's answers. Well, the one thing I guess I want to say before I tell you the ending story. So in the game, there are 8 characters. We've got 8 characters here today. We could each pick one if we wanted to. And they're based on archetypes, which the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung brought back into the modern world from the Greek. And it really means like the first principle or the first type. That's how the Greeks thought of it. So there's a knight, and his heroic quest is to gain courage. There's a lover, and hers is to learn compassion. There's a jester, and his heroic quest is to experience joy. There's a healer, and her quest is transformation. There's a dreamer, who's a poet, and his quest is vision. There's a sage, and her quest is wisdom. There's a monarch, and he's to learn dominion, but that doesn't mean power over. And there's a priestess, and hers is to learn illumination. So each of these 8 characters embarks upon a heroic quest in the game, and the idea is they can hopefully learn more about themselves, learn more about the path, learn more about all of the elements of life while having fun and playing a game. And that the idea is that some of the things that people may learn while playing the game could maybe even make a difference in something they're working on in their life. So I want to close by telling you this amazing story. So this is about someone named William Hutchison Murray, who lived from 1913 to 1996. He was a Scottish mountaineer and writer, one of a group of active mountain climbers before and just after World War II. Murray did much of his most influential climbing in the period just before World War II and climbed on many occasions. At the outbreak of the war, he joined a group called the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders and was posted to the Middle East and North Africa. He was captured south of, I don't know where this is, Mersa Matruh during the Western Desert Campaign in a retreat to El Alamein, this is in the Middle East, in June 1942, by a tank commander of the 15th Panzer Division who was armed with a machine pistol. To my astonishment, he, the German tank commander, forced a wry smile and asked in English, "Aren't you feeling the cold?" I replied, "Cold as a mountaintop." He looked at me and his eyes brightened and said, "Do you mean you climb mountains?" We both relaxed. He stuffed his gun away, and after a few quick words, the Alps, Scotland, rock and ice, he could not do enough for me. Murray then spent 3 years in a prisoner of war camps in Italy, Germany, and Czechoslovakia. While imprisoned, Murray wrote a book entitled Mountaineering in Scotland. The first draft of the work was written on the only paper available to him, rough toilet paper. The manuscript was found and destroyed by the Gestapo. To the incredulity of his fellow prisoners, his response was to start again. Despite the risk of its loss and that his physical condition was so poor from the near-starvation diet that he believed he would never climb again. The rewritten work was published in 1947 and followed by a sequel. Both concentrate on Scottish winter climbing and were widely credited with helping to inspire the post-war renaissance of climbing. Murray won many awards, including the Literary Award of the USA Education Board, an honorary doctorate from Stirling University, and a Mungo Park Medal for Himalayan exploration. His autobiography, The Evidence of Things Not Seen, was completed after his death by his wife, Anne. Although a quotation by Murray is widely misattributed to Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, did I say that right?
Very good.
My German grammar. The following passage occurs near the beginning of Murray's Scottish Himalayan expedition book. Quote, "But when I said that nothing had been done, I erred in one important matter. We had definitely committed ourselves and were halfway out of our ruts. We put down our passage money and booked a sailing to Bombay. This may sound too simple, but it is of great consequence." And here's the quote that is often widely repeated. "Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no one could have dreamed would ever come his way. I learned a deep respect for one of Goethe's couplets. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic